Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to another Ahsoka discussion. We are now through 6 episodes of the series, and George is not here. You are stuck with me today, you are stuck with Dave today, and you are stuck with a new face today. So my name is Tate. Once again, welcome to Cinema Savvy. How is everyone doing today?
Yeah, really good. Thank you very much, my friend. It's nice to be back and talk to you. So, and no, it's really nice to be back with some different faces as well. It's going to be nice to hear other opinions and views on this this show and what's going on.
Hello there. Yes, very nice to be here. Thank you very much for having me. Talk some Star Wars.
Brilliant. So we will go into discussing this entire episode called Far, Far Away, which I did immediately think of Shrek. I didn't immediately go to Star Wars. That was my first thought. I was like, okay, that's where they're going with the Purgle. They're going to take Ahsoka to Far, Far Away land. We will get into that in a minute. We want to hear your thoughts on this episode below. So please comment below with your thoughts on Ahsoka. Episode 6, Far, Far Away. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe as well. And make sure you can comment along. We love to read out your comments. We love to see your thoughts and reactions on this. Go and follow us on the social media link as well in the description. So that's linktree.com/cinemasavvy. Go on to Redbubble as well and pick up a Cinema Savvy t-shirt. Help support the channel, or a Cinema Savvy pillow, as I'm displaying behind me right now. So before we get into talking about the episode, we do have a new person on the channel. Well, not quite a new person, because you've actually been doing some work with us before, Jack. So Jack, for anyone who doesn't know, before he introduced himself, he has been he's been like our Fulcrum on the channel. He's been doing some undercover work for us with Star Wars based things. Helped us out Anaheim. When was that?
It was last year. So
last year, Anaheim.
May. Yeah,
exactly. Doing a lot of reporting for us at Star Wars Celebration. He was also there this year at Star Wars Celebration, also helping us out, doing some reporting there. And he is going to be joining us for the London Film Festival as well, with doing some film-based things for us there. So introduce yourself.
So yes, you got the name right. It is Jack. Yeah, so I have been a massive Star Wars fan since before I can remember. I think I was about 5 when my grandfather showed me A New Hope on a TV with a back about that big and a screen about this big. And it always used to get stuck when Obi-Wan was disabling the tractor beam. And I'm not sure if that led to Obi-Wan becoming my favorite character, hence this bad boy. But it certainly didn't hurt. And yes, I have been to Celebration Europe 2016, Chicago, and then Anaheim, and then most recently Europe, with the aim of going to Japan when they get the tickets out.
Exactly. And please do not light that lightsaber, because that will go straight through the screen and get me right now. Yeah, I was going to say, take me out.
I think the safety's on, so we'll be all right.
Excellent to hear. So before we actually go into the episode, because it is my first time on this series talking about Star Wars stuff, and it is also your first time, I know, long-term person over there in the corner who has been on many episodes already.
Just all the time.
We know your opinion. We don't want to hear it anymore. We'll go through it. So thoughts on the series so far. We are 6 episodes in out of 8. Last episode was fantastic. I want to point out, it was phenomenal. Almost like a on-screen experience. At least I felt it. I've watched the episode a few times now over. From various different perspectives. But I just want to hear both your opinions on how the series has gone so far. Where would you rate it as far as how you feel the other Star Wars shows stack up against it?
I personally now think it ranks right up at the top for me in terms of the TV shows that have come out. I think the way it's shot, I think it's much more cinematic than previous series have been. Even Andor was pretty close for that. Obviously, that was all shot location, and probably discuss a bit later in this that some of this seems to be getting more that way as well, not all just on the volume. But I think for me, in terms of story, I mean, as people who watch this will know, I am deeply entranced in the lore of all this, Clone Wars, Rebels. So for me, this was just a continuation on it, and I've loved the story. I've loved watching it. I think it's acted beautifully. Some of the people in this, Ray Stevenson is a standout. Is just a giant among men. It's so sad that he's not here, but yeah, I've loved this show. I'd really rank it right at the top of the certainly of all the Star Wars shows that they've had on Disney Plus for me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I would say that it. One of the things that I've noticed compared to the previous shows is how almost pristine things look. How I think the CGI, in particular, everything seems a lot clearer. And obviously, again, I know with Andor, like they built that entire town on Ferrix. But yeah, it's strange how everyone, when the volume came out, it was like, oh, this is such an amazing piece of technology. And then it seems like we've gone, actually, I don't like it. Actually, I can see the seams. And now we're going back to what we used to have, which is filming everything practically, which is great. But yes, as someone who else has watched all Clone Wars and Rebels, I think that those fans are being particularly rewarded. And I'm sure, as you guys mentioned before, about how does general pop feel about this show. I often use the barometer of my own parents. You know, they watched Mandalorian, they thought it was great, and I said, "Oh, there's an Ahsoka show coming out." And they were like, "Who are?" I was like, "Oh, no, it's the orange lady from that one episode." Oh, okay, yeah, maybe I'll. But yeah, like I have been really enjoying it so far, and I think that now, as we're getting towards the end of a season 1, if there's going to be more, I think that now is the time to really ratchet it up.
Yeah, I feel like the show's come on leaps and bounds. I didn't know where I would place it at the start. I didn't know kind of what kind of storyline they would go with. I knew that they would kind of target Thrawn, and they did that with the advertising and stuff like that. And we'll talk about that man later on in this review. But I didn't really know where I'd place it in the end, because I feel like Mandalorian set such a good standard to start off with, and then Book of Boba Fett it wasn't as good. Just wasn't as good. But then we've got Andor, which has been fantastic, and I'm so excited for series 2 of that. And now we've got this, and it's been fascinating because every single episode so far, apart from this episode, has had a lightsaber on lightsaber fight. And I love my lightsaber fights in Star Wars. I'm one of those fans. I love it when the blades go vroom, vroom, and they're fighting each other. So the fact that we've had that many lightsaber fights in this show, it's been so kind of it's set off all the serotonin. Like it's got me in the right place. So I've been just fascinated where they're taking the story and how they're building up the story. And of course, if they're building towards a, should we say, Heir to the Empire film where they tie in all of the different TV shows together and stuff like that, it'd be interesting to see where they go from there. So, as we have done previously with the other reviews we've done for Ahsoka so far on the channel, we're going to go character by character. And we're going to start off with the title character, who in her own show doesn't actually do much this episode. So basically, her entire episode can be summed up in one scene, which is literally end of the last episode. She kind of hitchhikes inside the mouth of Purgle, going to be heading to somewhere, doesn't quite know where, hoping it's going in the right direction. And her entire episode is placed down to a conversation. Quite a nice conversation, quite an interesting conversation. Talking a bit about kind of the past and a bit about kind of what she saw and her kind of thoughts and fears about Sabine. And it's kind of, she's voiced a lot of tensions about Sabine across the series so far. She's voiced a lot of kind of interesting points about kind of how she relates to Sabine as a master and apprentice. And it's just a fascinating kind of insight into how her brain is working, especially having come from the previous episode and she's gone through everything that happened in the World Between Worlds to now what her thoughts and feelings are going forwards and how she's going to fix it.
Yeah, the Sabine relationship I find really intriguing. We'll talk about Sabine later and some of her choices that she's been making in the last two episodes. Last two episodes that are maybe questionable to the character of her, but yeah, I like that Ahsoka still has these points that she was like, look, I looked in the Force, and she went willingly. She gave the map to Balin and just went with him quite freely. So the fact that Hu Yang tells her, look, you can see what you want, you can see the Force will tell you what's happened, like you'll be able to see that, but it doesn't tell you how a person was feeling, or if that, I think he says it might have been her only option that she had. So maybe Sabine does have an overarching plan in her head that she knew she was going to get to this place, knew she was going to get to Ezra. One thing I did love about the scene, and to say we've got to sort her out quite quickly, is the first time ever of the words "a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away" being actually said in the Star
Very
Wars
nice
universe.
touch.
And
Oh,
it
they are
was kind
going
of
to
like
use
a,
that for so
oh,
much
they said the
advertising.
thing. It was just,
Yes,
but
we all
I
went
really-
DiCaprio then.
I really liked it. It was kind of like, oh, that's so cheesy, but I was like, it made me smile. But I really liked it. Coming from Hugh Yang, it felt like if anyone was going to say it, you can kind of get away with that because he was tell me the stories of the, well, what was it? The stories, the tales of 1, 2, and 3. So like your prequels, sequels. And,
Yes, I definitely took
one's
it
the
to
favorite.
mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, you really think that Dave Filoni prefers the first batch of stuff that he worked on for several years? How interesting. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. He's like a wise Siri, isn't he? That Hugh Yang, he just comes out with everything. It's great. I obviously we had in the previous episode the Ahsoka the White moment, and even when she started talking, she refers to Sabine went with the enemy, and I just kept thinking about Ian McKellen just saying the enemy is coming and all that sort of wonderful stuff. I think what is quite interesting, with that conversation, I started thinking about in Empire when Yoda's talking to Luke about the attachment that he has for his friends, and he's saying, you got to stay here and do your training. It looks like actually, I think they all might get killed or put in the carbon freezer and all that sort of wonderful stuff. And what I thought was quite interesting is thinking about Sabine's attachment to Ezra, and especially with a character like Ahsoka, who's gone obviously through all the Clone Wars and Rebels. She's gone through so much where arguably her attachment to Anakin could have been seen as a bit of a hindrance moving forward. And what I'd like to see is what this kind of, again, this sort of new Jedi that's in this period of time, what their feelings about attachment are. Because even Yoda was like, no, we're still going to do the thing that we used to do even before the Jedi got killed, and that's going to be great. And then Luke went, nope. And now it seems like, because we don't know what this previous Sabine Ahsoka master-apprentice kind of relationship was, what'll be interesting to see is what their opinion on this new attachment, and is that something that should be encouraged, or is that something like a hindrance? Because obviously the big blue man is going to use those attachments as a way to exploit the crew.
It's the love is what makes us strong, or similar to those kind of words line that is used kind of later on in the series. And it's fascinating because from what Filoni's brought to Star Wars, he has brought forward characters who don't take the same line as the old Jedi code. We see that, Hera had a child with Kanan, and, that's very anti-Jedi. You're not meant to do that. So having, doesn't have to be romantic attachment, but having forms of attachment, the Jedi talked about kind of, separate yourself from it, you're one with the Force and you just kind of settle with that. But throughout the series, and especially throughout this series in particular, they question that along the way. The Jedi don't have things figured out. It's very clear that Baylan did not agree with the way the Jedi Order was run, and he believes that to be the downfall of it. And that's very similar with kind of, how Order 66 came about. It was the questions of, being blind to the fact that the Emperor was just there under their noses. They were so kind of, in line with the corruption, just kind of got on with it. They didn't kind of smell it anymore, kind of sentiments. It's fascinating in that sense. I'm glad that they're exploring those kind of areas of, can a Jedi have those forms of attachment? Can a Jedi kind of be both, fully in line with the Force and fully, I'm going to follow the kind of code and follow the order, but also I'm going to have these attachments. I'm going to be able to, make friendships, have relationships, and also be able to still come out on top. It's just an interesting, side of things that they're exploring, which I'm really happy they are. And we'll talk about
I was just going to say, like, with even if you look at like the High Republic stuff in the novels at the moment, they're all kind of doing their own thing, and you don't see that sort of the dogmatic view of this attachment. It was when it comes down to the possessive stuff, and obviously we saw that with Anakin and Padme, and that's where the downfall is. And even if you look at for example, at the end of Obi-Wan, where he's about to get crushed by a billion rocks, but then he uses his attachment to Leia in order to get out of that. So I think you're right. I think it's a very interesting thing to see how each showrunner is defining what it is and if it's something that needs definition in the first place.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say it is becoming a massive part of this. So I'm really excited. Like they say with the downfall stuff, like Ahsoka's feeling towards it and her feeling towards the Jedi Order seems to be very similar on a way to the way Balin's thinking as well. So they have so many parallels in their characters as well. So I find it really interesting that the relationship side of how they're trying to redefine it all. And I think Filoni, if anyone's going to be as close as maybe George would have put it, Lucas, not ours, would have his ideas would have been terrible. He's watching football and talking about Star Wars. So yeah, it's really, really interesting place. I can't wait to see where they actually start going with that side of it.
Interesting indeed. And kind of moving on from Ahsoka and moving on from, once again, David Tennant, who's now going to be used for Star Wars advertising forever. That is going to be the opening to every single Star Wars advert for the rest of time. It just will be his voice over the top of different clips of various different things, whatever. Fantastic use of the fantastic actor there. We get to see kind of a bit more of hyperspace from the Purgle's perspective, which is interesting. I know in The Mandalorian, we got to see them traveling through hyperspace and we saw some Purgle going by. Whether that is in line in the same timeline as this or not, we will find out at some point, I guess. But it's really interesting that they seem to be kind of willing to show that more across all Star Wars media. I know we got a little bit more of it in the sequel trilogy, but previously you just kind of see the jump into hyperspace and you see the jump out of hyperspace. You don't really see anything in between. So it's fascinating that they've kind of brought that forward as a visual aspect to the show. And yeah, we just kind of get to see that perspective, which is very interesting. Any thoughts on that very quickly before we move straight on?
Yeah, I think it's nice that we're seeing now that the reason I don't think it's at the same time as The Mandalorian, well, it might be around that time, but that jump, you see the difference in, it's not just that blue squirrely shape anymore, like the crackling of the lightning and all the way through it, and how fast and how far they're traveling as well. It's a total different look as how they're jumping, especially when they come out. It's almost like it breaks the background of wherever they're coming out of. And when they jumped in the last episode as well, it looks like such a much more powerful thing. Like they've obviously built a space ring. They need something to bring Thrawn's Chimera back through space and time. They're going to use the massive circly Jedi starfighter hyperspace ring to bring that back. That's where they built it. So yeah, I really liked seeing. I like the new version of this to show you we're not just in the same hyperspace you've known all this time. We're in this new version that's taken us to a brand new galaxy that we're going to visit, which has sort of similar sand people and sort of similar Jawas characters that we're going to meet along the way, but it all rhymes. George told us. But I really liked the way it's shown us, and it was nice to now get to this side of that, and then obviously we get to New Planet, which was lovely.
I just want to know if when Ahsoka's ship is inside the Purgle's mouth, do they is it turned off? Are they parked, or is it floating the whole time? Because that way, I was going to feel like you got peanut butter on the bottom of your mouth. Flying through space.
No, it's really interesting because from the previous episode, my dad actually made the comment: are they going to turn the engines off? Isn't that going to burn the tongue or anything like that?
They'll get out and it'll just be like, they'll say, "Oh, thanks for the lift." We'll go, "Yeah, no problem."
Well, we learn a bit more about the Purgle and their hyperspace travel and stuff like that when they arrive at Peridia, because Peridia is a graveyard for the Purgle, which is interesting. A very cool visual shot of the kind of the rings of the planet being just bones. And the story of, the Purgle go here to die, basically. They go to the outreaches of space to a different galaxy just to die. So very fascinating. The Purgle who have made this very long, very large hyperspace trip, are they going there just to die, or are they just going to go there and chill out for a bit? Is that a travel? Is that, something they make regularly? These are questions that I immediately had upon seeing the episode, and it was like, oh, that's kind of dark. We do get to see a new planet, though. We do get to touch down, and we also get reintroduced once again to the Night Sisters. I know that Morgan Elsbeth, at the start of the series was said, yeah, she's Night Sister and stuff like that. But we get properly introduced to what I can only describe as kind of, like Clone Wars cartoon kind of, levels of Night Sisters, which is very interesting seeing them in live action, very interesting hearing their reverberating voices and stuff like that. I've seen one story arc with the Night Sisters. I haven't seen the whole of Clone Wars, and this is where I'm kind of in the dark here. I've seen just, the Maul stuff, nothing else. I don't know if they get reintroduced later on at any point. I don't know if it's just a very small part of it, and
they all dead.
I know they all dead. I know they all dead, but I don't know how they all dead. So,
coughing cyborg man with 4 arms comes.
Grievous, got it. Yeah.
Yes, he has a big grievance with them.
It was lovely to see them. I mean, obviously we get our 3 witches, which seems to be obviously in any sort of going from Shakespeare time forward. That's where you see it. Yeah, exactly. We're going to see 3 witches
this
together.
whole series has been Macbeth and Arthurian legends and various different things. I mean, second episode was called Toil and Trouble.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
Yeah.
But it was really nice to see them. I mean, it was nice to see actual Knights in full costumes, in the red costumes with the lovely pointy hats. Some with 2 points, some with 1. Who knows why? But they look great, and the makeup on their face looked so much better. I really, like you said, the reverberating voice, the echo behind it. I really liked that they had something different about them. I like Shin Hattie's almost like more witches. Like she's really uneasy around like this side of it when technically they're Force users and not that much different. It's just how they interpret the Force. But her unease around them as well, I find, and her unease with what's going on generally as well, I think is really interesting. But yeah, it was lovely to be back with the Knights and see how much it was them who've kind of been telling Morgan Elsbeth how to get across space and time to get over to them for Thrawn. So she hasn't been hearing Thrawn's voice like she's been saying. The Knights have been getting her over there. So yeah, really, really nice to have them back.
I think building on the Macbeth of it all. So I went a little bit off-piste when I was doing some notes for this when I watched it for the second time. And those don't know, the witches in Macbeth, they are there to, they don't tell Macbeth directly, but they strongly suggest, hey, why don't you kill the king and then you can be the boss guy. And then they go, actually, things are going to turn out quite badly for you. So I started thinking about who the Macbeth is. So the obvious choice would be Thrawn. However, technically, the king's already dead. Palpatine's gone at this point. And I also wonder, and I'm sure, I guess we'll talk about him a bit later, does he know? Because he got sent off sort of at the beginning, well, before A New Hope. So I wonder if there's been any communication, and he's going to, hopefully with his aim of getting back to Galaxy A, being like, oh, the boss is gone. Am I the boss? Who's in charge? That sort of thing. And obviously you raised the point about Toil and Trouble. And again, bear with me. One of the first lines that the witches use is in Macbeth is fair is foul, foul is fair, hover through fog and filthy air. And when they arrive on the planet, they're going through a lot of fog, and then a very, very large Star Destroyer comes out and hovers in the air. So I went a little bit mad watching that. And I wonder if they are literally there just to, cause the trouble for the mortals in this story, and if they have their own means. And if they do aim to get back, because it looks like they can't get back by themselves, as with the reference of Blade and Skull says later on in the episode, are they actually going to be like, let's get rid of this Thrawn guy? We've got our own business to do.
We've got 2 episodes left, and I feel like every single character can't be trusted with the alliances they've made.
Oh, yeah.
We'll talk about predictions later on. We will talk about predictions later on because we're only 2 episodes away from the end. So we should have all the information going into the finale, shall we say, as it has been with all the other previous Star Wars series. They kind of give you all the clues, and then the 7 will be the reveal, and then 8 will be the solution. So we should know exactly what we're getting into already going into the next episode. But yeah, as far as Knights is concerned, I do feel like they probably have ulterior motivations. The fact that the communication has been one way as well, I don't know if they're really siding with Morgan Elsbeth as well. I think they've probably got their own motivations and I want to say this, and I don't know if this is Star Wars racism or not, but she's not quite a full Night Sister, is she? She doesn't look like the traditional Night Sister kind of look.
You're going mudblood, aren't you?
I
can hear it in your voice. You can't say that. You get in trouble for that.
But what I'm trying to get at is they seem very traditional. They seem like they've picked a Night Sister who's out in the stars, who's still surviving in the galaxy we're used to. They've drawn her over to this galaxy. Does that mean they need her anymore? Because realistically, does she have any other, use here other than being a Force user and being a Night Sister? Is there any other kind of use for her at this stage in the story?
I think she's probably, out of all of the characters in this series, the most disposable that we've met so far, along since from when she turned up in Mandalorian. Still now, she might stand stoically and she's kind of helped getting there, but I can see her being the most disposable by the time we come to maybe the end of the show. That she's not someone I can see. There's no reason for her to carry on if we're getting full-on Night Sisters coming back to the galaxy we know.
I think, yes, unfortunately for her, with all of the elocution lessons she's had with books on her head, I don't think that, if the Night Sisters betray Thrawn, then Thrawn will kill her. And if, as you say, if the Night Sisters don't have a need for her, they'll kill her because she's loyal to Thrawn, at least from the perspective we've been given. Also, she is the enemy of the goodies. So that normally doesn't end well. And it was interesting. I was listening to, completely not read Star Wars whatsoever, but I was listening to Carl Urban talking about his character choices, and he made a point of if your story can be told without that character, then there's no purpose to having them in. And I don't see what the next step for her in a narrative sense would be.
Her next step is betrayal for other characters. And I think, and we'll probably talk about them right now, the betrayal that she's already probably going with is with Baylan and Shin, because she's very happy with Thrawn just kind of leaving them. And Thrawn is very happy with just leaving them because they're mercenaries. She's hired them to be able to fulfill her goals to get to Thrawn and bring Thrawn back. And in doing so, she's been doing it through contact with the Night Sisters. The Night Sisters may have ulterior motivations. And she's basically, without really saying it, she's basically left them out to dry here. They could just leave. They could just go because Thrawn's like, yeah, whatever. They're going to go and try and find Sabine and kill Sabine and kill Ezra if Ezra gets found and stuff like that. They're disposable at this point. They're mercenaries. They fulfilled their job. And she's the one commanding that. That's not Thrawn. Thrawn could just turn around and go, look, I've been brought back. This is my kind of mission. This is my goal. She's the one who was in direct contact with you. She's the one who hired you. She's actually the one who's betraying you here, not me. And she just sits in the middle right now. And I feel like Baylan and Shin, I think they're going to be the people who end up killing her in the end. I think that's where it's going. I know that's early for a prediction, but just the way the story's going at the moment, I feel like they will have no use for her anymore, as she has no use for them anymore.
But Baylan has some ulterior motive for being where he is.
100%.
The fact when he was talking, you were saying this place is like where he said it was it's been in a place of children's stories, and he just trying to tell Shin of what they are and where they are. That he's heard all about this place, but only through fairy tales. Basically, we would read the Hans Christian Andersen novels. That's what they've had, that sort of teaching of it. But obviously now he's in that place, and the fact he's saying to her, can you not feel the power that they're trying to get away from? Even the Night Sisters are trying to get off that planet, maybe not to have an ulterior motive. There's something bigger brewing out there that Baylan is tapped into, that he can hear is calling him, and I don't know in any way, shape, or form. I've got no clue of what that even might be, what he's looking for, what he's hearing, but it really excites me to find out what that is, because for me, Baylan Skoll is by far one of my favorite new characters in Star Wars for a long time. I'm so sad. I've mentioned it a couple of weeks as we've done this. I'm so sad that we lost Ray Stevenson. One, before he got to see just how much his performance is being absolutely across the board. I've never seen him go, and he's the worst character in it. Nobody's got that opinion. He stands head and shoulders, quite literally in most scenes, above anyone he's on screen with. And I would have loved to have seen more with him, like follow on from this. I don't know what they're going to do to kind of end his story in this, or he's just off somewhere in future, because he talks to me, when he talks, he sounds like if Qui-Gon had lived through Order 66 and been as unwilling to follow the way the Jedi were going, that he would have very much lived this same out. He would have had the same outlook as Balin does. And I just, as a character, he's one. Yeah, as I say, in New Star Wars, he's one of my favorite things. I absolutely adore every scene he's in.
I completely agree. Like, I got a very strong, especially after watching Tales of the Jedi, a very strong Dooku and Qui-Gon sort of vibe from him, and how he's talking about trying to break the wheel effectively, which is very, very interesting. And I think, first of all, we've got a new phrase, the Bokken Jedi. So Luke's a Bokken Jedi. That's lovely.
You Bokken Jedi.
Another curse word, lovely. And I think that this kind of new power that's talking to him, and is it something that he can harness? Is it something that's too powerful for him? Is it something that perhaps everybody might be facing in the future? Is quite interesting, and I think the cracks are starting to show between him and Shin. I think that this whole uneasiness that she seems to have about almost everything. It's like, oh, you're going to get this power? It's like, no, we're not going to do that. Oh, okay. But you're going to be great. You're going to be something more than a Jedi. Okay, cool. Like, and how was your past? Oh, it was terrible, but we're going to be better. But maybe not you. So it's kind of strange dynamic where he's kind of half telling her stuff, and obviously that's because as the audience they don't want to tell us everything right away. But the interesting, I think you're right, this kind of stoic medieval knight character is very, very interesting, and to have a character that doesn't speak, Wookiee, who's that big and imposing, is nice and refreshing to have such a physical presence. And just to echo what you said, he was so interesting to listen to at Celebration. And he had, again, that big presence on stage, even before Mr. Mickelson came out. He was so interesting to talk to, and he seemed so excited. And it's one of those strange things where I hope his character dies, because I don't know how they would be able to do anything else with him, even though I want to see more of him. It's this bittersweet thing.
I get the feeling that if his character survives the series, I don't think they would kill him off screen. I feel like they would revive him, whether it is through animation or whether, if he is intended to be part of the bigger story, whether they would recast him. I'd be okay with it, but I'd also not be, because he's done such a fantastic job with it. And it's kind of separating the job that he's done as an actor, which has been fantastic. And it's such a shame that we've lost such a good talent, and the kind of character that's been built around him, because it's a fascinating character. And I really want that character explored more. And I feel like maybe if there's a prequel done similar to a second Tales of the Jedi, where they flesh his character, I think that'd be fantastic. I think that would be amazing if they fleshed out his character more in that sense. And we'll see if they do that in the future. Fingers crossed. But
yeah, I mean, if we know that this second Tales of the Jedi is coming out, I don't think they would have done anything for it. But if they do a third, that would be great. And just one last thing, and obviously I saw it on the internet, so it must be true and trusted. No, I don't think this is just someone made an interesting comment. And if they were to recast, I saw people saying about Liev Schreiber.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I could see that.
He's also tall and has facial hair, so yeah.
He has a very similar
And he can
look.
grow his nails out of his. No, that's
No.
different franchise. Doesn't matter.
Never again.
Anyway, we have our first comment, and I actually want to piggyback off the back of this comment. From Ben, Shin will turn toward the dark in search of power and kill Balin, maybe. Now, I have very interesting thoughts about this because I honestly feel like Shin is one of those that is teetering. It's like a coin that's spinning. You don't know which way it's going to fall. She's uneasy about the various different things that has been said so far by her master. And I get the feeling that she's starting to crack one way or the other. There's been moments where she seemed really evil and kind of has that crazy look in her eyes. The similar look that I think Kylo Ren gave, when he was going through that kind of, I really, really hate everything, but also I kind of see the light and it's calling to me kind of thing. And I think she could teeter either way. I think that she could turn towards the light if he goes towards the dark. I think she could turn towards the dark if he goes towards the light. And I think that is going to be where a conflict does arise later on in the series. And it'd be fascinating. I think if she turns towards the light, she dies and she gets killed by Balin. If she turns towards the dark, I think she kills Balin. So I think that's destiny intertwined between those two characters, the master and the apprentice. I feel like that is the way that story is going. But it's fascinating that, like you said, Dave, we are seeing those cracks. We're starting to see, the characters who seemed like they were kind of, she will follow him into any situation. And now she's starting to question things. And whether that is questioning the light inside of his dark or the dark inside of his light, it's very interesting. She's still dressed as if she was a Jedi Knight. She has those Jedi braids. She has an orange lightsaber. It's not quite fully like vibrant red. It's very interesting. She also has those kind of hatred moments. She's, willing to kill, citizens of the New Republic in the first episode. So it's one of those where, does she regret her decisions? Does she feel fully enforced by it? Or does she feel like this is not a path that's great enough? Maybe she'll be swayed. Maybe she'll be talked into things by the Night Sisters, or maybe she'll be talked into things by Thrawn. We are yet to find out, but I feel like her destiny with Balin is intertwined. One of them will survive, one of them will die, and I think it'll be at the other person's hand.
I think she'd be very easily manipulated, especially by someone as intelligent as Thrawn. I think that would come across very easily if he was to get into her head. I think he'd twist it very simply. But she has that, like, almost that want and need from her master that when she hears stories of the old way, like living in the temple and being a Jedi, she seems to kind of almost crave that, but she's never going to have that. Like when he's like, oh, like you said, like, not gonna, and that's not for you. That was the past, and I'm doing something different with you. And I don't think that's what she wants. She kind of came into this as his follower and his real Padawan, and is not gonna get what she wants from that. So, but I think if anybody turns her, then I think you're right. It would be her, and I think Thrawn would be behind her turn, if anything.
Yeah, I think the conversations that she's having she seems to be very focused on so we'll get Thrawn and then we'll have the power and we'll be in charge. And I think that the kind of ulterior motive that Balin has, which I don't think is actually about gaining power. I think it's about stopping the power, period. So I think that Shin will kind of see effectively where the wind is blowing. And I think if she can see that Thrawn seems to be on the upper hand, he seems to have a plan, I think you're absolutely right. I think that she would be the one to go, actually, I'm going to side with the big blue man with the white duds. And Balin can go and kind of do his own thing. And also there's a sadness, I think, about Balin that you see in the previous episodes, when he says it will be a shame to kill Ahsoka, there are so few Jedi left. There is a design reason as to why they have orange lightsabers. They have never referred to themselves as being Sith. They've only been called mercenaries. So I think that the Balin of it all is that he is trying to do his own thing that has no affiliation to anyone other than himself.
Is he walking the middle?
Now, everyone's going to get a bit angry if they start talking about Grey Jedi.
We're not mentioning them.
Okay, we'll avoid that
Exactly.
topic. We'll avoid the topic.
So no, I don't think he is. I just think he is. And you raise a very good point about the fact that the fourth episode is called Fallen Jedi, and that could apply to many people in that episode.
God, it could apply to every single person in that episode.
Yeah, and I think the fact that yes, I think he is using like all of the villains seem to be, they're using their connections to get their own motives done. And I think that Balin's is so far askew from this craving of power that we all traditionally think that Sith want. And I think that he's just trying to break this wheel. And I think that is where Shin Hati is just going to be like, well, I thought we were doing this so we could get bigger and tougher and whatever. And he's going to be like, nah. And she's not going to like it.
One thing, I guess we'll talk about it a little bit later on when we talk about the Blue Man group. But with Balin's introduction to him, it seemed like Thrawn wasn't completely, he didn't know them really. He was like, they're mercenaries. They're just hired to kind of get you here and stuff like that. And he immediately smelt the Jedi on them and stuff like that.
But then he said, General Balin Skull. So I think there's whether it's the fact that we all know Thrawn to be this master tactician who wants to know as much information, as he says at the end of the episode about Ahsoka. I wonder if it is and I'll be perfectly honest, I have not read all of the Thrawn novels, the ones that were legends and the ones that are now canon. So I'm not sure about his involvement with Jedi during the Clone Wars. I know at least one of the covers has him and Anakin. But I'm not sure if there has been a crossing of paths or if this is just you're a Jedi, you're about the right age, so you're probably a general. It was a very loose military progression system back then. I'm not really sure. Yeah.
I mean, because if we in one of the books, I think he has met Anakin. Thrawn certainly met Anakin, and was one of the few who knew Anakin was Vader. He worked that out as well. So whether that comes into play as well in the next couple of episodes, who knows if Hayden Christensen might be back in a way across these next few episodes as well. So I'm just let's see what that brings. But
I'd love an Order 66 flashback. I mean, we've got them in most of the series so far, so that'd be great. Give us more of that.
I want to be depressed. Come on.
No, but I want to be depressed, but I also want the pretty cinematography that comes with it. So we'll go with a nice happy medium between the two. Speaking of characters who are kind of flicking between kind of are they good? Are they bad? Are they doing good? Are they doing bad? I think a good character, a character who is inherently good, who is currently having a bad time about it, is Sabine. And we had this little discussion before we went live with this one. I'm not a big fan of Sabine in this series, and that's not because I don't like dislike the actress. I don't dislike kind of the way that she's portrayed the role. I don't dislike kind of, anything really about the character other than the decisions she's making, because the decisions she's making are terrible at every single turn. It's very selfish, and I guess it's inherently part of her character. And I've seen all of Rebels, so I know that that's kind of what she was like. And, they set it up with the series for people who hadn't seen Rebels and stuff like that she's a bit of a rebel herself, in the first episode, driving away from her own presentation, basically. But I feel like it's unchecked. And every single time we've seen a character like this who's unchecked, making bad decisions, there's been very little recourse for redemption. And I feel like Ezra's going to lose his shit once he finds out what she's actually done. And I feel like there's going to be a bit of discourse there. And I just don't know where she's turning in this series, because she's done some things that are, inherently kind of, siding with the enemies, whether she's got ulterior motivations, whether she's got a plan for all of this. Realistically, she doesn't have any power in this universe at the moment. She doesn't wield the Force as well as everyone else around her. We haven't seen her Force powers come into effect yet. She's not the best lightsaber duelist. She's there in the series, and at the moment she's just causing chaos through her being there. So I'm fascinated by her character, but also I'm very frustrated by her character. because it is the main course of trouble in this series. If she just does what she's told, or just does the normal thing and isn't tempted by the devil, then the series ends.
It's been, I mean, we said before I went on, it is a frustration of the Sabine that I've known through Rebels, and to see her making these choices now. I know she's got Ezra on her brain. That's what her goal is, very much to bring Ezra home. It has been from the start for the last 10 years between Rebels finishing and where we are now. That decade, that's what she's been motivated by, to eventually bring Ezra home. So I kind of almost get in a way that she's doing what she feels is what's going to get her at the next stage of being with Ezra again, and finding a way to do that. But I just find the steps that she's taking are leading to everything else that's falling in the background as well. That Thrawn thanks her for being his escape, and that she's put her galaxy at risk just to bet on Ezra still being alive. And he's so right. She has no knowledge of that, of whether that's going to be there. She doesn't know he's there. Only has that hope and that persistence that she's got to find out and move forward with that. I do find, I mean, as a character, I still enjoy it. I still like the way it's performed. I love that they again teased that the Force with her, and it was actually the Chimera coming over, rumbling the sand when she started to move the doors. And I was like, oh, she's can't use Force now, and she hadn't, which I quite liked. But I think what the one thing her story did for me this week is give us a real look at this new galaxy and where we were at and this new planet. I thought it was nice to get that. And I said again before we went live that it looks, for me, when she was out and about, that didn't look like plates of a place that was shot. It looked fully like she was in a live action set, some like a mountainous area somewhere.
I mentioned
Scotland.
Scotland.
It looked very much like the low-hanging cloud
or
over there.
Wales. Somewhere hilly
but
and
I don't
rocky.
think they've ever shot over here at all. So I'm interested to see, because I'm sure we'll get a full in-depth making of once this series is done, to see what it was done. And if it's on the volume, I'll applaud them, because they are getting. It'd be incredible. I mean, some people use it badly, and Star Wars seem to be the one who used this pretty well for, like in Andor, using it for backgrounds and reflections more than actual sets, whereas Marvel just kind of seemed to put it on, let's just do everything on here, it'll look fine, and it doesn't. It needs to be subtly used, and I think they're getting better with it, especially at this level. If that's some of that is, sometimes you can see the seam lines a little bit, but in all of that stuff, it looked incredible. I loved meeting new creatures, and we got new little. We've got metal sand people or roboted sand people, and we got new versions of either Jawas or Ewoks. We kind of got that. Again, George,
we got crab people.
Crab people.
Yeah, I started thinking about the little trolls in Frozen. Under rocks.
Under the rocks.
God, if they start singing and dancing next episode.
It's weird. I started thinking about them. I started thinking about in the Clone Wars, there's a species which are kind of little lemur people called the Lurmen. I started thinking about they kind of reminded me a little bit with the sort of the caravan style setup, a little bit like hobbits as well, because they're all very well dressed. They've got like lovely little suits on, waistcoat and like lovely, but also you're a rock man, so that's cool. You do you. Obviously, it is a Dave Filoni series, so there had to be some sort of wolf-like creature, the Howlers, just in case anybody was thinking anything different. I started, and obviously I've mentioned Suri and McKellen at the beginning. I started thinking a little bit about Middle-earth, the sort of almost a Rohan kind of when they're going over and you see the rocky outcroppings and the hills and stuff. And I think especially when you get to the I'm not sure if there's a name for it just yet, but the Night Sister stronghold, it was sort of built into the rock, so it kind of looked a bit Minas Tirith-y, cross with like the Tower of Orthanc. So Saruman's thing is a big black tower, sort of like cutting through the background there. But going back to Sabine, I mentioned this say off air, which we all do stuff off air now. I think that this episode had her the closest to her depiction in Rebels, purely because she wasn't as stoic. And I think a lot of that might actually be to do with the fact that Ahsoka wasn't there. And I think that the fact that we, again, this sort of post-Rebels training period that we haven't really seen, we've only had sort of whispers of it throughout the series. I think that because she's allowed to sort of be herself, that's allowed her to be a bit more vocal. You know, she's obviously talking to the Howlers, and again, there's a lot of sort of eye rolls and like witty comments that she was doing, like with Thrawn. I got a little bit of, Admiral Tarkin, I recognised your foul stench as soon as I was brought on board. You know, that sort of sort of dialogue she was having. And also, I think that with the Ezra of it all is that I think we're led to believe that Tristan and Ursa and the rest of her family, the rest of Clan Ren, were killed during the Night of 1,000 Tears. And I think that this seemed to be this time period where she was with Ahsoka, and Ahsoka said, "You can't go." And I think that is where this rub has kind of happened. And because of that, Hera is off being a general. Zeb is maybe still in that bar from The Mandalorian. We haven't seen him rock up yet. I mean, he's too big to fit in an X-Wing. What are you doing? And, Chopper's away, is Jason. There's no one else left. I think there's no one else left from this crew. And I think that, again, this kind of hope and whisper of just being like, if I can get one person back, I will then know what to do. Because she left this training with Ahsoka, so now she's, she doesn't have a master. She doesn't have a direction. And you saw at the beginning when she's getting away from the rebels, the ceremony. But I think, after sort of shedding the previous life and her responsibilities and just being like, I've got to get to Ezra and then we can figure out a plan. But I think he's not going to be very happy with the, cool. So all the work I did a couple of years ago with the whales and then the whatever, that was for what?
Yeah.
It's when she screamed at the Howler as well, like, "You abandoned me," and it just felt like a trauma moment as well, that she wasn't talking to that wolf rat cross creature. Like, she said that, like, real hurt, like the abandonment of just, again, someone leaving her in a fight just felt like hit a bit close to home. Like, she's been left by Ahsoka, she's been left, like you said, by her crew. She just, it felt like a real, like, character, like, just letting it all out for a moment while she was walking across this new planet's grasslands.
Everyone moved on, but she didn't. And we do get her to have a bit of a better end to the episode. I mean, she does reunite with Ezra. I'm glad that in an episode where we had, a couple of characters coming back from previous series, we did get Ezra coming back, especially with the reveal of Thrawn slightly earlier on in the episode. It was nice to kind of have them both back in one episode so we could just get onto the finale instead of it being kind of, left hanging for the final few episodes. Will she ever find him? And it's a nice reintroduction. It's nice to see Ezra in live action. I can't wait to see what he does with the series, especially if he's, handed back the lightsaber. That'd be an interesting moment if Sabine goes, "Do you know what? I'm not actually aligned with the Force. I'm very happy if you just take the reins."
Get it and just throw it over his shoulder and walk away from it.
And then one of the what are they called, Naughty, picks it up and but once again, Jack, do not turn on your lightsaber. I'm still in shock.
It's fine.
But I mean, for a series where we were expecting Thrawn to come back, it's basically Rebels season, was it 5 now?
5.
Expected Ezra to come back at some point. It's nice to see him on screen. Can't wait to see what he does. He just kind of gets a very quick introduction in this episode, and we'll see what he's able to do with it throughout the rest.
I was interested by, first of all, they did a good job. They got the little scars that he gets from the Grand Inquisitor in season 1. I was interested about the sort of mithril. I keep mentioning Lord of the Rings. This is a Star Wars show, but the Beskar, the kind of chainmail he's wearing under that, under his sort of his homeless garb, as it were. So I thought that was quite interesting. I wonder if we'll find out the sort of has he run into Thrawn and the his Imperial remnant. They refer to them as Night Troopers before, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure. And I wonder if one of the things we will get, maybe we might not see Mr. Christensen again, but I would like to see what happens if we get a flashback of 1 minute after they land in Galaxy B. How does he get off their ship? Because at the time, Ezra's doing a bit of this, and Thrawn's been wrapped up by whales. So what happens as soon as they get there? It'd be interesting to see in live action.
I'd be very interested to see what's happened in the last 10 years for Ezra's story, what's happening. I do feel, however, he's going to lose that whole clan of rock creatures that he's carrying. That was the first thing I thought when you see them together.
Dead.
Like, they're on the way, and they're not going to see this out. He's losing his whole clan of rebels. Again, that's Mr. Bean's fault. She's led them right to them. So unfortunately, they're gone. But yeah, it was lovely to see him. I thought the actor played him really well. Stand, I think. Stand. I can't remember his surname. I know it's a man, but I can't remember his surname. It's still obviously fairly new.
Esfandi.
So I thought he did an excellent job. He had a very good flow and like pattern of speech. He sounded like Ezra Wood with like 10 years on him. I thought was stepping that character really well. Lovely to see him back. It was a really nice moment to be like, oh, there's Ezra. Okay. We're really back in Rebels, and it's really nice to have them reunited. I am very interested to see what he has become in 10 years, if he has continued on in the Force, if that is something he's even got an interest in, if he's moved on to something else, something different, if he's more powerful, if that power that Balin's feeling is Ezra, has he become more than he was? I'm very, very intrigued to see it. But it was a really short part of the episode, but really nice to see him. Obviously, the main attraction to this episode was what is the guy we're going to talk about next, probably.
Oh yeah.
One last couple of things about Ezra. Sorry.
That's okay.
I thought that, first of all, it's bloody lucky that Cal Kestis didn't go looking for him, because he would have killed all of those little naughties straight away.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how you could tell Sabine was exploring because she was wearing a poncho. So that was
cool. The Star Wars must.
Yeah, I was going to say. So let's talk about the big guy. He's back. He's mean, and he is as good as ever. I am talking about the character introduction of Enoch, who, once again, I just want to point out, because we're going to go into Thrawn in a minute, but when they revealed his design for Enoch, I was like, oh, damn. They're going for that kind of old school Japanese samurai kind of facial reconstruction onto the armor. I think it's fascinating that they all kind of had the gold kind of, I know there's a material name for it in Star Wars, but patchwork done for it. And there's a Japanese art of patching something using gold and gold paint and stuff like that to trim around the edges. It's such a cool look for Star Wars. And it's very exciting how menacing they look, but also how cool they look at the same time. Because we don't just want a villain and their kind of henchman / troop / army to just be kind of, it's just a standard army. We've seen stormtroopers before. No. We want to see the cool stormtroopers, the ones that will sell pop figures. So
nothing sells pop figures
I
anymore.
will point out this episode, especially with the reintroduction of the Chimera, God, they're going to make so much money off like Lego, pop, like everything off this episode. Jack, are you willing to spend a lot of money on a Chimera Lego set? Is that going to be the next project?
I'm willing to have a discussion with my other half about it. But for the
Christmas is coming soon, guys. Just remember that.
For the purposes of the tape, I don't know what a Lego is.
Excellent. Yeah. Definitely.
Good.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, I think that Enoch. First of all, to have an Imperial with a name is also quite interesting because there are, TK421, what's your status, and that sort of stuff. Also, the other thing I will say, wow, it's a character that has an interesting armor. Let's not get too attached, shall we? Because before you know it, a blind man's going to knock them into a pit, or they're going to fall down a big burning Star Destroyer, and everyone will be like, well, what happened? They were really cool. But yes, I thought that was very interesting. And I'm not sure if you guys have watched Resistance, one of the, I would say, probably the most poorly received of the animated ones. And that's fine. I would say it's probably more directed towards children as opposed to 30-something-year-old men. But there is a band of pirates who have sort of reclaimed a lot of Imperial armor, and they've cobbled together, bits of X-wings and bits of TIE fighters and bits of various trooper garb. And I got a little hint of that from the night troopers that were there. And again, with the return of the Big Blue Man, he clearly likes to keep his uniform standards. Because, again, all the troopers are there. They are as covered as possible. They've tried to, they've rebuilt the Chimera. You've still got the, insignia of the, I believe it's the Salamiri from
something along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, which they decided, I think, not to introduce in Rebels because they're weird salamanders that take the Force away, which is fine. They've still got that, and I think that, again, this might be the fact that he's trying to get back to normal. However, he may not know that his boss is dead, kind of thing. So I thought that was a very interesting, and even the chanting of his name, because clearly he's not a narcissist at all. I thought that was interesting. I mean, he's obviously always been a different breed of Imperial, but when the shuttle lands on the second Death Star, you didn't hear the guys going Palpatine, Palpatine as he's coming off the shuttle. So
but now I wish they had.
I really just cheerleaders,
It'll be Sheev, So yeah, I think it's more of a, well, I'm stranded, I'm going to take what I can get. I haven't got a good radio, so this a cappella group of 400,000 troopers will have to do.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a real shock to see, like, when that arrival, when you see that bank of troopers, like, you didn't kind of think, obviously, at the end of Rebels, most of the ships were destroyed, obviously, but you don't think of all the troopers that were probably stationed on that Star Destroyer. And I don't know how many, I think with the red wrappings, and it's kind of pointed at that these were probably they asked for more Night Sister magic at the end. I believe these are all going to be being kept alive by Night Sister magic. I don't believe many of those, if any, are live people inside those uniforms anymore.
One of them is, it will be Enoch, and that's purely because I feel like Thrawn wouldn't trust fully the Night Sisters to have his back, and he'd want something that he had in his own. And whether that's a character we've seen before, this is where the speculation begins. This is where, the internet goes crazy because it's another masked character. Therefore, we must know who's under the mask.
It's Barriss Offee. It's Barriss Offee.
So I just thought it was wonderful. I really loved the design of the troopers. I loved the red wraps around them. I loved of Enoch's. I loved the gold mask. They said that's looking of a samurai, and with his partial in the helmet. It looked incredible. It was such a different look for Star Wars when he turned around. You saw that. I was like, oh wow, okay. Pay attention to this. Like you say, it could be the Phasma. He may be dead very shortly, but or really just uninteresting. But for now, yeah, he was incredible. And as a guy who was Thrawn's next in command, and what you say about Thrawn's return, it was just something else.
Well, go on then. We'll talk about Thrawn. We'll talk about him. So of course, we have been finally introduced to the main villain of what I can only assume is kind of the main villain of all of these Star Wars TV shows, maybe barring Andor. We have been introduced to Thrawn, and as a character who's been in Rebels previously, and a character who has a lot of stuff written about him through various books, and various different things that are canon. It's nice to see him finally on the small screen, but big screen, shall we say. It's nice to see he's actually a part of the live action universe now. It's great also to have Lars in this role because, oh my God, I know that presence through voice is one thing, but presence on screen as well. Ooh, you can do both, you know? It's fantastic. And his entrance and the way he holds his demeanor and the way that he talks straight away, you're immediately into the character. My dad, who has never seen the character before, has no idea who he is, has only heard of murmurs of him. Suddenly, he's like, oh, okay, he's not kind of like, you know, your normal Empire person. He's immediately into the softly spoken, will destroy you with his words, doesn't have to use his hands. His hands are pretty much behind his back the entire time kind of vibe. And that's what we're going to get from Thrawn. And it's a villain we haven't really seen in Star Wars before. A villain who doesn't scream orders, just kind of stands there quietly, likes to think tactically, is okay with losing battles because he's fully aware that he'll win the war. It's that calm composure that is eerie and just frightening. And to have him fully kind of put into the flesh and immediately get to work, immediately have those kind of jabs at various different characters, just straight away, I was immediately sold. And I was like, yep, brilliant, done, yep, great. You know, we've got him as a villain, and I'm happy with kind of the direction that he's taken the character, and happy that it's just as if it was just ripped straight from Rebels, as if it was ripped straight from the books.
You've heard the voice for so long if you've watched Rebels and it's just, he comes across, and as soon as he opens his mouth and you see him come through, because essentially there's not much more done to him than they've put blue makeup on him and slicked his hair back. They haven't like added anything to his face or his features. It looks very much just like him, apart from obviously the red eye. But as soon as he starts speaking, that voice is, it would have been awful. I mean, yes, they probably could have got another actor to play this part, but to have that iconic voice come out of it does something. It's just, you're right, it's this seat of power that comes through just him speaking words, and like he's in control. And I mean, to give my thoughts away probably already, that I think Thrawn will be the victor when this series ends. I think it will end with a Thrawn victory and the Rebels having a loss and needing to regroup for the next series and build Thrawn as a bigger bad. I'm so happy that chose Lars. I couldn't now see anybody else taking that role. He just, it's his, and he owns it. He owns every scene he's in. I can't speak highly enough of what, I didn't know what he was going to be. Obviously, you've seen a very brief clip of him in the trailer where he's just stood there, but to see him fully realized, I thought it was exceptional work. I really loved it.
Just to talk briefly about anyone else playing the role, I'm not sure if you guys ever saw it, but at Celebration 2019, there was a big mural. There were photographs.
Yes, Brosnan.
Yeah, I was just about to say. There wasn't a musical number in this episode for those who haven't watched already. Sorry to disappoint. You're right. It's like audible honey, isn't it? You just hear it, and you just go, yes, he's talking about primary objectives. And lovely. I think that you're right in the sense that for the Tate's dads of the world, they need to do something to show why everybody is quaking in their boots. Because even when I watched Rebels, and I came to Rebels, I think I started watching Rebels when season 3 was announced, because when I was at Celebration London, I literally walked past one of the rooms and the Rebels season 3 trailer was being shown for the first time, and obviously his big blue face came to. I was like, I've seen that guy on the cover of a book, and everybody just lost their minds. So I went into Rebels being like, okay, I've got to get to season 3 because everyone's talking about this Thrawn guy. And as someone who, I think I'd only read Heir to the Empire, I hadn't read The Last Command and the other books. My only thing about him was that there was a lot of him, we'll let them get away this time, but I've definitely got a plan. Like there was a bit of that. And I think that yes, I think the Rebels will probably end up losing. I think also in the back of our minds, we are kind of all thinking of Filoni's film as being this sort of Avengers team up of all of the Mando characters and everything to face this big bad that will probably be Thrawn. But yeah, I think just seeing him, I think when I saw him the first time, but I think before he spoke, it's a bit like when you saw Ahsoka for the first time, where you're like, ooh, how's this gonna go? And then they start talking, and then it goes into motion. You kind of go, oh yeah, this is comfortable. This is like a big blue chiss hug, and that's fine. But yeah, I think that what I'm very curious about is the relationship he's had with these witches. Talking about, they mention about the thread of fate, and the thread of destiny has been talking to us and telling us all these things. Yeah, whether or not it is the literal threads that may or may not be holding these night troopers together, or what it is this greater plan is to come. But you can still see that he looks like he hasn't missed a step. And again, his uniform, bearing in mind the time period and all the big whales, you've got a couple of little threads here and there, but the rest of it is,
crisp.
Exactly, crisp to a T.
I want to point out that the last time we saw him on screen would have been in Rebels, and that was a defeat. That was probably the biggest defeat he's ever faced. So I was going into this series thinking they're going to use him for the film. They're going to have to use him for the film because he's the only big bad really left in the universe who is big and bad enough that, you'd need an entire team up to take him down, and he'd actually be a credible threat, and he could actually start a war. I went into this series thinking he's winning this series. And I'm still in that line of thought. And I think we'll see that over the next 2 episodes that, he'll be in the upper hand kind of end of episode 7. His plan will be realized. People will be trying to stop him, but I don't think they're going to be able to. I think he'll escape. I think the final few episodes are going to be set. They're not going to teleport anywhere. They're not going to be chased anywhere. I think it's all going to be set in the same location, just because the end title sequence, all the roads point to, one planet, everyone ending up on that planet. We know that's Peridia now. So I'm assuming that that's just kind of where everything goes down. And then at the end of the series, he will blast off into space. They will either be stuck there or they'll be either chasing him, but he would have gained some sort of victory with a death of someone or a death of a lot of people, or, some kind of like plan to, retake the galaxy. And, that's where I feel like it's going to be left off. That's my kind of speculation at the end, but I'm glad to see he's back. I am interested to see where he goes on from this and what his plan eventually is going to be. And yeah, as far as a credible threat is concerned, I do feel like he is the key choice for the film.
I agree. I think that if you're going to have this conflict, it obviously is quite difficult now because Balin destroyed the sort of the map, the orb that they were using to get anybody else there, unless they turn up with a bunch of whales again, which may or may not happen. I was sort of thinking it was going to be a little bit like Scarif in the sense of they are trapped in this one place and it's a desperate attempt to prevent Thrawn from escaping. And yes, I think it is going to end with a bit of a, Infinity War style ending of someone saying, where is he? Where is he? And Ezra sits on the floor with his head in his hands and goes, oh God. No, this is going to be the bad kind of ending.
Loads of hyperspace rings appear from nowhere and it's just people walking out of the hyperspace rings.
Well, I did start thinking about, we haven't seen him yet. Surely Zeb's going to turn up in a ship at the end. Surely. To come and, even his big head might be poking out the top of the cockpit, but
out of the droid port.
Exactly.
We have
just lying down using a system of mirrors.
Has not done his signature move, which is the spin slap yet. So this series can't end yet. Like
he threw the tracking.
Yeah, but we haven't seen him slap someone. Like
no, he hasn't pushed over a slightly more polite droid yet.
Yes,
so I'm surprised him and Huang haven't got into it yet. But yeah, I think that yes, Thrawn is going to win the battle. The other thing, before we get into sort of all the lore stuff of it, and it's the classic thing of any story where you put a story between two established stories already. No one mentions Thrawn in The Force Awakens, or no one. I think that, and we've kind of seen it a bit in Mando, where they start to explore the cloning of it all. I don't want to start getting into episode 9 because people are going to get upset. But I do wonder if his escape will lead to, again, this kind of the First Order's kind of on its way. And I know we've obviously seen Brendel Hux as part of the Shadow Council, and they're all talking about trying to get Thrawn back. So I assume, again, in this Filoni-verse film, that might skew off into and Thrawn didn't work out so well. We'll do this First Order thing. We'll all go and hide on Exegol, where we've got a million ships and lightning and whatever. But yes, I think you're right there with the Thrawn winning.
Yeah, I mean, the only difference I probably think in that is I think the last episode Thrawn will jump back to the known galaxy and announce his arrival by destroying at least those 3 New Republic cruisers that were there sent to arrest Hera. I think they are doomed, and I think that might be the arrival. The Chimera comes back, destroys some New Republic ships.
I think he's going to do something bigger. I think he'd do something bigger, like destroying Lothal or something like that.
Coruscant.
Not another super weapon, please. I was to be fair, I was very happy that the Eye of Sion was not another big spherical superstructure. I was like, oh, thank God. Well, it's half a circle. We'll let him go.
Fine, we'll do that. Yeah.
We can't do cubes. That's Star Trek. So
when I first heard them say Eye of Zion, I was like, that's Matrix, right? Eye of Zion, right? Like, that's where I immediately went to. Anyway,
went to a rave.
Let's go into our summary. As we are kind of coming up to, we don't want to be the longest episode here. We'll leave that for the later episodes. So just to summarize this episode and just go for, we'll say one big prediction per person for the finale. As far as I'm concerned, this was a little bit of a step down from the previous episodes. I know that we've been very much treated over the last few weeks with, the previous 2 episodes being some of like the peak Star Wars that we've got. But this was kind of peak Star Wars in a very different way. This is very much original trilogy kind of territory. We do get to see some lovely character moments. We get the iconic line at the start of the episode. And also we just get kind of characters being reintroduced. It's the pieces being placed back onto the chessboard and making sure they're all in play for when we actually get the game started for the final 2 episodes. That's where I kind of see it. And realistically, I feel like next episode, we're going to get a death of a character. That's just guaranteed. I don't know which character that's going to be. But then I think going into the finale, we're going to get a lot more deaths. I don't think many of these characters are actually making it out alive. I think some of the main players will, but I feel like at least one of the good guys, at least 2 or 3 of the bad guys are going to go. And it's going to be complete chaos as they're going to be trying to set up the film later on.
I'm with you. I enjoyed this episode. It did feel like a very different beast to what we had, especially last week, which was just so visceral and just this wave of emotion watching it all. It was incredible. But I really enjoyed this episode still. It wasn't like it was I'm not watching that again. I will watch it again just to go through it. I think you're right. I think there's something big coming next episode. I do think we will find out what's calling to Balin. I think that might be the big reveal for the next episode to kind of build that in. Maybe Morgan is the one who will not see out the next episode. Her betrayal by the Thrawn, or somebody else will. One of the Night Sisters will get rid of her, maybe. But yeah, I'm really excited. I like that. As much as I can speculate, I have no idea where they're taking this story in the last 2 episodes. They've not plotted it out where you can say, "Oh, this is exactly what's going to happen." We know there's going to be a battle of some kind, but there's still a lot of story to tell. But I'm just really excited to see them.
Yeah, I think that there is going to be a betrayal. Villains betraying each other. That's obviously very typical Star Wars. I think that someone who we haven't talked about, who I think has is kind of, we've got to know him quite well, and people who have got to know him quite well who haven't seen him in the animated form. I think Huang might bite it, because he's kind of he's trying to get everyone together.
Yeah.
He's this almost sort of core thing, you know. I told them to stay together, and I think
You make me sad now.
I'm sorry, I got to do it. I think that his sacrifice will inform this reconciliation between Sabine and Ahsoka, and also hopefully the thing that's calling out is not Tom Baker's Bendu telling everyone that he's the one in the middle again. Kanan Jarrus, Jedi Knight.
That'd be amazing.
Not even just live action Bendu. It's just Colin Baker, just like
his brother,
just in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, my thing, my shot in the dark is Huang. I think is not going to make it out, and probably Morgan.
That's an interesting shot in the dark. Well, we want to hear your shots in the dark coming into the final episodes of Ahsoka. Please leave your thoughts below in the comment section. Don't forget to like and share and subscribe as well. Create a discussion around this. We love a good chat. This has been a very, very fun chat to be on. I should join in more of these Star Wars things. They're quite fun.
Yeah.
But please, we love to create conversation. So please make sure you leave a comment below. Also, please go follow us on various different social medias. So they are all on our Linktree link, which is going to be in the description below. You'll be able to see that down there, where you can find out about all the videos coming up and stuff like that. We've got our Fincher retrospective currently at the moment. So we're recording that. We've got London Film Festival coming up soon. Myself and George, we are going to be going to see The Creator next week. So we're going to see a press screening for that, which we're very excited about. More kind of ish Star Wars linked things coming from that film itself. But please go and check us out on our social media to find out about all of those videos, and go to the link in the description as well, just to go onto Redbubble and pick up anything of ours. Before we sign off and stuff like that, Dave, is there anything happening at the moment in your channel or anything like that?
I will be actually coming back, and speaking of Star Wars, I will be coming back. I am currently going to be doing the Build the Millennium Falcon for Fan Home. So that is coming back. It'll be a monthly as we get the issues through, a part work build over the next, I'm guessing, year and a half of those parts being built to build a studio scale size Millennium Falcon. So that, and you'll no doubt find me here because they cannot get rid of me.
And of course, thank you, Jack, for coming on today. We're sure to see you again very soon for more Star Wars based discussions. If not, we will see you a lot for London Film Festival based discussions, as you're going to be there helping us out with some of the coverage on that. Any final words, any final thoughts? Do you want to talk about your Star Wars project in the background that I'm fully aware of?
So first of all, yes, thank you very, very much for having me. Always love talking Star Wars because I can talk at my partner, but it's nice to have a conversation with people. That thingy from the I'll pause it and I'll explain. Yeah, I am, for you lucky viewers at home, I am in the process of building the Razor Crest, which is there at the moment. It is very big. It is very grey. So it's looking like a beached whale at the moment. But I've been assured by the box that it is in fact a spaceship. So that's nice.
Good, good, good. Well, thank you ever so much for tuning in, everyone. We will see you on the next video. Thank you and goodbye.